So we've seen several deals go through over the weekend, and we also have a bunch more transfer rumours to hop into in today's video. As always, if you do go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. We are getting ever closer to this next season, so do leave down below how confident you are feeling judging off your recruitment in this window so far. Without any further ado though, let's jump into the done deals. And we'll start out with the big deal that went through: Scott Twine completing his move over to Burnley for a fee in the region of around £4 million. Exciting stuff here from Burnley. It also shows that they do have money to spend in this window. A couple of weeks ago we were unsure about the finances at Burnley and what their squad could potentially be looking like heading into next season, but this is quite the ambitious signing. They fended off several of the Championship clubs who were also interested in the MK Dons playmaker, and I think this one's a real statement of intent. He was the best player in League One last season for me, 20 goals, 13 assists, fairly versatile as well with the positions that he can play. Is happy to play central or off the left hand side, where MK Dons probably got the best out of him. Burnley desperately suffered from a lack of creativity last season though. They only scored 34 league goals, less than a goal per game, so adding a little bit more creativity and firepower, which is to come I'm sure, was an absolute necessity for Burnley in this window, and they've got off to a fantastic start with their recruitment with this addition, I have to say. Rotherham have snatched up Tom Eaves on a 3-year deal. This one looking like an obvious sort of replacement for Michael Smith, who we spoke about on last time's video in terms of another target man coming into the club. Eaves was in and out of that Hull side last season. A lot of his minutes did come in off the bench, scored 5 goals in that time for Hull. Has never really been a prolific scorer at Championship level, but will be a nuisance in the box, and especially for a side like Rotherham who do look to get a lot of those crosses in. A player with Tom Eaves' stature is always going to be a decent fit into that sort of side. Like I say, never quite been a prolific scorer in the Championship. His best goal scoring season at this level is just the 5 goals, but he does bring other things to the table which they would have probably been lacking had they not got in another striker in the mould of Smith. We saw Middlesbrough complete a deal for Blackburn's Darragh Lenihan. This one had been on the cards for quite some time, but it has since been confirmed with his contract running out at Blackburn Rovers. Good deal here from Middlesbrough, who are steadily building up their squad for next season. Lenihan a really solid addition. We have had closure on the Gareth Bale situation, as he has joined LAFC. Obviously he was long linked with the move to Cardiff, which would have been the romantic route for the end of Bale's career, but realistically it was probably always going to be a little bit of a long shot. I for one would have absolutely loved to see Bale in the Championship, but a move to America at this stage of his career, it does make sense, I think. In terms of the intensity of the league, things like that, Bale wants to be in the best possible condition heading into the World Cup, so I can see the logic behind it, albeit I am a little bit gutted he won't be in the Championship next season. Matthew Soranola has completed a season-long loan move over to Swansea. Russell Martin once again using his connections for this one, with him previously working with him from his time at MK Dons. We all know how important those wide players are to Russell Martin's system, and Soranola, a player who already has that know-how about integrating into a Russ Martin system, by all means looks like a really positive loan move for the season. Attacking-minded left wing-back. I think that one looks like a really good addition. And Millwall have got a deal over the line for Zion Fleming coming over for a club record fee. I am particularly excited to see what he can do in the Championship next season. There had been quite a few Championship clubs previously who had been linked with the attacking midfielder, but the fact that Millwall have got this one over the line, when we did start to have that conversation about what Millwall would potentially be lining up with next season with the departure of Jed Wallace, you know, how would they go about replacing the goals and assists that he brought to that side? Well, this is a huge stride in the right direction for me, and the numbers he's put up in the Eredivisie over the past couple of seasons I think are really encouraging. 12 goals, 4 assists this season, 12 goals, 7 assists the season before that. He can play pretty much anywhere across the forward line, so I think that that's a massive tick in Millwall's favour as well. And I think they've been crying out for someone to properly cement down a place as that creative sort of number 10 in this Millwall setup for quite some time now. They've experimented with a a few different iterations of how they like to play with their forward three, but Fleming, I imagine, would be centre and front of everything Millwall will be doing next season in terms of their attacking output on the pitch, and the fact that it's for a club record fee as well shows that there is money to be spent here. And yeah, I'm really excited about this deal, and I'm sure that all the Millwall fans are as well. But guys, there we have it. Those are the completed deals which have gone through in the Championship over the past few days. Now, without any further ado, let's hop over into some transfer rumours. Joao is now a free agent, and he has been linked to several Championship clubs, Huddersfield being the latest club linked to the former Stoke City midfielder. I think Allen will be a solid addition to quite a few of the Championship sides that he has been linked to recently. You'd imagine wherever he does end up, it would be a sizable pay cut that he is taking from the contract he was previously on at Stoke, so I think that that one's a given really. Huddersfield have been talked about, as well as a potential return to Swansea. Reading have reportedly received an offer of around about 2.5 million from Besiktas for star striker Lucas Joao. Now, Reading's squad as it stands is already looking pretty thin on the ground in multiple positions, and it would be considerably worse off if Lucas Joao was to join that list of players leaving at the start of this season. Reading are in a little bit of a lose-lose situation with this whole Joao situation at the moment, because he's only got 12 months left in his contract, and in the usual circumstances of that being the case and this sort of bid coming in, you'd think it would make sense for the vast majority of Championship clubs to go ahead and cash in on Joao and then try to reinvest that money into the rest of the squad. But with Reading's current predicament and with the business plan that they've got agreed with the EFL, that can't be the case for them, because they're not actually allowed to spend any money regardless of any of the transfer fees they actually bring in. So from Reading's perspective, in terms of reinvesting any of this Lucas Joao money, it may as well be zero that they're getting from him at the start of the season should he leave, because they don't have it in their means at this point in time to actually go out and spend any money. So from that perspective, you could argue it makes sense to keep him around for the season and then lose him on a free transfer at the end of the season anyway, because a player as good as Lucas Joao with his record in the Championship could absolutely be the difference at the end of the season between Reading being a Championship club or a club going into League One. 2.5 million, it's around that sort of ball figure that Reading may start to be tested on what they do for Lucas Joao. It's a tough one. It's looking like Fulham are ramping up their interest in Coventry midfielder Gustavo, who does look like one of the obvious saleable assets in that Coventry squad at the moment. They've probably got quite a few of them actually, and it's quite a nice up and coming group of players they've got at this point in time. But Hamer's been absolutely terrific for Coventry over these past few seasons. The money they actually spent on him, they'll get at least treble that from a potential transfer fee for when they do decide to sell him. 25 years old now, was a crucial part of that Cov squad which continued to push up the Championship. 3 goals, 9 assists this season just gone by. And at this stage of his career, he is probably looking at that next stepping stone as being a Premier League move. I think that Fulham would be quite a nice move for him actually at this stage of his career. I do think Coventry would be quite hard pressed to go ahead and replace him, but for the potential money that is being discussed when it comes to Hamer, maybe Cov would be wise to cash in and then reinvest that in a few other areas. Todd Cantwell's an interesting player at this point in time. He has been linked with the move to Blackburn, who I'm sure will be keen to add some more creativity into their front line with the departure of Joe Rodwell. Cantwell's an interesting one. He didn't quite light it up as we thought he might have done at Bournemouth during the second half of last season and his loan spell there. He's only got 1 year left on his current deal at Norwich as well, and his future at Carroll Road seems to be very much up in the air at this point in time. I'd be interested to get some Norwich fans' perspectives on Cantwell, because on his day and with his head properly screwed on, he'd be, he has it in him. He has the natural ability to be one of the best playmakers in the Championship. We've not quite seen that from Cantwell over the past 12 or so months. So Norwich are really left with a bit of a decision in terms of what they actually want to do with him heading forward. It seems as if Bournemouth are upping their pursuit for Blackpool's Josh Bowler once again. It'll be interesting to see what sort of money Blackpool are after for Bowler, considering he's only got 12 months left in his contract, and they did knock back several offers for Bowler back in January. One of Blackpool's best players last season, 7 goals, 3 assists, the best dribbler in the Championship by numbers if we're ranking it by successful dribbles. 23 years old as well, so a lot plays into Bowler's favour at the moment, but the 12 months left in his deal leaves Blackpool not in the strongest possible stance in terms of a possible negotiation for his price tag. We have mentioned with Blackpool that in terms of incomings, it may be a situation where one or two go out before we see a few more coming in, and perhaps by that degree a lot of Blackpool's business in this window does depend on what happens with Josh Bowler and should they receive a sizable chunk of money for him. Birmingham have a contract problem with goalkeeper Neil Etheridge, who could be forced to leave the club. Reportedly so, he has a trigger in his contract whereby if he plays just a few more matches for Birmingham, he will then be due a pay rise. And obviously with Birmingham's current financial situation, that's not viable for the club at this point in time. So he is likely to be exploring his options heading into this summer. Hull have agreed a deal for Ozan Tufan. This is just a case now of getting all the formalities over the line, but an exciting deal for Hull here, albeit his last move to England didn't exactly work out last season. Out on loan at Watford was a bit of a disastrous move for both parties really. Looked well off the pace in the Premier League, but undoubtedly there is a player there. It's just a question of whether Hull can unlock that in the Championship. Put up really good numbers from his time at Fenerbahce in terms of goals and assists from midfield, but last season, whether it was a fitness issue, a mentality issue, just didn't seem to be on the pace whatsoever for Watford. But Hull have got quite a few spinning plates at this point in time actually, with other deals which they're looking to line up. Obviously Traore, Seri, as well as a few others also being spoken about. But yeah, I'm particularly interested to see how Tufan gets on. And this one comes on the back of George Honeyman, who looks to be sealing a move over to Millwall. We did speak about this transfer rumour last time, where we sort of asked about the validity of it, who it would make sense for the club and the player, but seemingly so, Honeyman and Hull couldn't come to an agreement with a new contract, with him only having 12 months left on his deal at Hull, and so a move over to Millwall is the player's next destination. For Millwall, I think they're getting a cracking player in George Honeyman. Good, versatile player, happy to play as a number 10 or further back into midfield. Millwall were in desperate need of adding a little bit more creativity into their squad, and I think they're getting a really good, hard-working, dynamic midfielder in someone like Honeyman. It seems as if West Brom are currently leading the race for Tom Lawrence. He has had plenty of other Championship clubs interested in him, but seemingly so, West Brom are keen to add another creative midfielder into that current setup. 11 goals, 5 assists last season for Derby. Was a little bit of a redemption arc last season for Lawrence, took on a little bit more responsibility within that Derby squad, was obviously given the captain's armband and came up with several big moments for them. If they do get this deal over the line, you'd imagine that would mean one or two of the wingers that are already at West Brom are likely to move on. We're probably looking at the, Matt Phillips, maybe Callum Robinson, another one you could throw in there. If I'm being honest, I think I probably rate Robinson higher than Lawrence actually, but it seems as if they're keen to shift on Robinson, and so adding another player like Lawrence would add a little bit more depth to that position. Ben Woodburn is currently on trial with Preston North End, having recently been released by Liverpool. He was out on loan last season with Hearts. A few loan spells recently which haven't really worked out for Woodman. A few years ago he was one of Liverpool's hottest prospects. Scored in his debut for Wales, was Liverpool's youngest ever goal scorer. But at 22 years old he now finds himself without a club. I do think that Preston are in need of another creative midfielder to back up DJ. Harrop's out the picture, Izzy Brown's left as well. But I would imagine with this not exactly being a priority position as, a striker and wing backs are, maybe we are looking for a cheaper alternative in this position. As was probably the case with David Cornell as well, who's set to come in as a backup goalkeeper to back up Freddie Woodman. Anton Bayliss is off to Shrewsbury, a transfer which just hasn't worked out whatsoever for Preston North End. We've actually gone ahead and cancelled his remaining contract with the club. I've got a video coming out later on in the week where we rank each Championship club's club record signing, and yeah, it's fair to say that Bayliss isn't show up all too high on that video. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get all your thoughts on the recent speculation in the comments down below. Apart from that guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.